well ahead of the game. And then at the end of the Upward Bound program, once they're a senior, before their freshman year in college, they can take two courses, two college courses at any campus that has an Upward Bound program, and they get credit for it. So they can go into college ahead of the game. And then there's several scholarships that are particularly specialized for Upward Bound students.
Excellent. Yeah. So they start, do most students in Upward Bound start as freshmen in high school?
Yes.
Good.
Usually,
can you get in if you're not a freshman?
Yes, you can. You can. We've taken students. If we have room, we try to focus on just 50 students at the College of Mount St. Joseph. A place like University of Cincinnati, they have a larger group because it's a larger school. But our grant is written for 50 students.
So there's a college, there's an Upward Bound attached to universities.
Yes.
And so it's a direct relationship. So you have
Absolutely.
50 students at Mount St. Joseph, but there's a different Upward Bound at the University of Cincinnati.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Is there an Upward Bound in Northern Kentucky also?
Yes, it is. Most of your universities around the area, every university usually has an Upward Bound.
Now, is there it's one site or one number that they call, or do you have to call or access them individually, or is there a homepage where you can just tap what university you like to go to?
There is a homepage you can go to the College of Mount St. Joseph or whatever college you're interested in, your student participating in. If you want to be a part of College of Mount St. Joseph Upward Bound program, you would just go to College of Mount St. Joseph website, www.msj.edu, and search for Upward Bound. And we have a website, or you can do the same thing at UC.
Okay.
Or Miami, or Xavier, or NKU.
So when you see the young people that are matriculated through the Upward Bound program, what's the graduation rate from high school, or just roundabout, and what's the numbers of those young people that go through Upward Bound that find themselves in colleges and universities?
Very good question. What's so amazing about Upward Bound is that about 80% of the students who come through Upward Bound and go to college, 80% of them graduate from college in 4 years.
Wow.
That's absolutely amazing.
That is.
And no matter where they go, and our job is to track them as they're graduating, as they're in college. And so we do have access to that data.
Good.
And so it's supported.
And that's tremendous. I remember, and particularly when you talk about those adolescents, individuals that are first generation college students, I remember when I graduated from Central State University that there were so many individuals that it was they were the first generation to graduate from college. And I remember that, and they were the first person in their family that they know of to graduate from college. And that was a shock to me because I was the youngest of 5. All my siblings went to undergrad and graduate school or professional school. And my father was a doctor, my mother went to college. And so it was a shock. And then my grandmother went to college, actually, back in the early 1900s. My grandmother went to college. And so that was a shock to me to see so many individuals that were first generation and the first person in their family to go to college. And so when you think about that 80% of those individuals in Upward Bound matriculate in 4 years, for most of us it takes 5, 6, 7 years, and at University of Cincinnati back in the day with U College, they were there forever. They were long-term residents of Cincinnati. They lived in Tangeman Hall for 10 years. They were part of the welcoming committee at the University of Cincinnati. They weren't ever getting out. It was like a black hole. You get in, you can't get out. And so I think that what's invaluable is for, as we begin making decisions and as families make decisions for colleges, it's important that you begin thinking about that when your children are in 7th and 8th grade. Yes. I think that sometimes we don't prepare our young people with the information and, most important, the resources. You have 2 individuals here that are having the resources that you need to be successful as parents in helping your children prepare to be successful in college. So as you talk about Upward Bound, as you talk about the Black College Tours, it's interesting. Now, I'm sorry, I said Black College Tours.
Right.
And so my perception always was that you only went to those universities at first. Was that a focus first? Did that change?
It was a focus first,
okay.
Because I wanted to expose our students to minorities, people that look like them that were in college. Because the students that I were dealing with, they would have been your first generation students, and they didn't think about going to college. When I would go out and meet with the parents and the families, the things that they wanted to do would just be hairdressers, work at a hotel. But when we start exposing them to possibilities and opportunities, their thought process changed. Especially, I can remember when we went to Kentucky State campus. They didn't know that Kentucky State existed in the state of Kentucky. So it's just that information out there that Step Higher provides the high schools with, as well as the parents, to let them know that your child can do anything they want to do. But again, you need to start. They have to start 7th, 8th grade and start exposing them and letting them know that this is what you're going to do. We're going to set a map for you for success to get you on the right track. So we do visit the historically black colleges and universities. I'm a graduate of Wilberforce, which is the oldest HBCU school, as you know, so it's next to Central State. but in either
Started
case,
across the street.
Right. But it's just important, even if they don't decide to go to a black college, it's important for them to get the feel of the campus. They can see all the glossy brochures and the pamphlets all they want, but it's nothing like visiting a college campus.
But what I think it's also important for us to understand, and audience to understand, is that when we say historically black colleges and universities, is that most people have to understand is that some of them are no longer predominantly African American.
That's correct.
That there are some historically black colleges now that are not predominantly black.
That's correct.
And I think the value of that is understanding the history of why we have historically black colleges. Because sometimes it's a question that you're getting, I get pushed back, well, why do you have colleges just for you people? I say, I think that's okay. But historically, the reason is because of segregation.
Yes.
And yeah, that as well as the Quakers and the folks that came through the town who would, when the African Americans would help the Quakers come through, and they always would promise them that they would come back and help. That's like Tennessee State and Fisk University. They were founded by Quakers. So they continue to help, and then they wanted a place for us to be educated. So segregation, you have Fisk, Tennessee State, they were founded. I know those are two for a fact. They were founded by Quakers. And then you have Tuskegee, which was founded by Booker T. He didn't go to Tuskegee, he went to Morehouse. So, you know, but it's just there, you know.
So understand, so if historically black colleges is only because of the history of segregation in America, and so anyone's open to go to what is known as a historically black college. They are not exclusively black colleges anymore.
Correct.
And I think that that's what's important for us to understand. And sometimes we lock ourselves into looking at it and saying that these are exclusively black colleges when they're historically black colleges and universities, and that there have some what were historically black colleges that are now have the majority that are white. And a lot of them moved from evening college to day college on a mass exodus.
Right.
And so that's been true, because I think sometimes people push back when you have that whole concept of black. In terms of Upward Bound, do you have diversity of students? Because I think that what's important is there diversity? Is it socioeconomic? Because you may have, we know in the city of Cincinnati, we have a lot of urban Appalachians. We know that Hispanics, Latinos are the largest minority group in America, representing 14.5% of the population. Are those resources, is Upward Bound available to my child if I have a white kid that's first generation, or if I have an Hispanic Latino kid that is first generation, or God forbid an Asian kid that's lower socioeconomic?
Absolutely. As far as the Upward Bound chapter at the College of Mount St. Joseph and University of Cincinnati, I know they have attracted majority African Americans. But all over the country, at the different schools, it just really depends on what area the school is in. There are white students, Hispanic students, Asian students that benefit from services of Upward Bound. And most of your Upward Bound schools are going to target your inner city areas. So that's where your large African American population comes from, because that's the grant is designed to target those areas particularly. And so it really depends on where you are. I have seen brochures and information about Upward Bound programs in Nebraska and Idaho and all over the place, and you'll see, you know, Caucasians and Asians and Hispanics in different places.
Good, because I think it's sometimes when you have a panel that's, you know, all African American mostly, we have one multiracial in the middle, but she got good hair. That's the Indian in her. And so, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Where's that from?
I just figured it was some Indian in you. That's what everybody else says. I got good hair. I got waves. I got
Hair
some
is
Indian in
hair.
me.
It doesn't make the person. It
Oh,
doesn't matter.
that movie Hair. Yeah, I forgot about
doesn't
that.
matter.
This is not a plug for the movie Hair.
That's right. It doesn't matter.
But because sometimes when people look at it and they see that you have a college show, and I appreciate, because I remember